Hello, hello. Let me do a review of The Butterfly Lampshade by Aimee Bender, a 2020 novel. This is follows 8-year-old Francie having to leave her mother, who is being overwhelmed by mental illness, to go and live with her aunt and uncle, Aunt Min and Uncle Stan in LA, where they are just in the midst. Aunt Min can't actually be there in this mental health crisis of the mother because she's giving birth to Vicky, who figures later in the story. Basically, the novel kind of bounces back and forth between this point here of Francie leaving her mother and traveling to LA, and 20 years later with adult Francie trying to come to terms with that leaving. With the help of now adult Vicky, she builds a tent on the balcony of her apartment and kind of goes back through those events, looking for something. This is Aimee Bender's first novel in 10 years. Her I think it's her debut novel. It was The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake, which I think I remember coming out at the time, and I have to admit the title itself, The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake, turned me off, and I never picked it up. So this is me just first novel of Aimee Bender that I have actually tried. She's, I guess, one of these people who's like more known for probably her short stories than her novels, as much as, unfortunately, you can be known for being a short story writer in the current climate. It's a book about this kind of a rupture between a mother and a daughter, and a rupture, when Francie is so young, of, basically having been raised by a single mother who has mental health issues, has had continual ups and downs, even in young Francie's limited experience. She knows the signs. She can tell when her mother gets that certain kind of thing into her voice, and you can see both in the young Francie, who has sort of definitely kind of some violent thoughts, has uncontrollable sobbing, but which she kind of describes as being kind of dissociated from her. It's actually just her body releasing all of this energy. And the adult Francie, who is quirky or odd, doesn't have any relationships with a man or a woman in her life. There's one point where she looks at a guy and says, well, maybe a future me might be interested in being in a relationship with someone like that, but that's like a future me. It's not a me now. She is very isolated and cut off. She embarking on this kind of this journey of hers, taking place just in her apartment. She quits her job as a framer at a local art store, and is just living on basically picking up junk at junk sales, giving it a clean, kind of reframing it, with a description, and selling it online for a profit, and is able to make enough money to kind of get by that way. But it's a very isolating kind of experience. She's someone who's also very minimalist. You might think someone who's like always buying, little pieces and stuff like to sell, she'd be kind of surrounded by clutter. It's like, no, her apartment is incredibly sparse. There's very, very little in her own personal space, and that definitely kind of reflects her rather deadpan, kind of flat affect character. She's a person who is haunted by objects in a way. The title, The Butterfly Lampshade, when in this transition period, because she's all focused about this transition period between leaving her mother and then travel in Portland, and then traveling to her by train, because she insists to go by train because she doesn't want to blur on an airplane. Young Francie has that thing of she'd blur, and she couldn't handle that. She stays with a babysitter, and her favorite babysitter in her place for an evening or two, and there's this butterfly lampshade which has all these like butterflies on it. She goes to sleep, and when she wakes up, there is a dead butterfly in her water that looks exactly like one of these butterflies off of the lampshade, and she becomes convinced that that that's that butterfly that has somehow sprung into being dead in her thing, and she's at a loss, like, oh, what should I do with it? What should I do with my baby? The babysitter's coming. She drinks it. She drinks the butterfly. She takes the butterfly into herself, and as this memory seems to, she's taken it into herself, and she can't get it out. And there's a variety of other instances within this transition period where she experiences things coming out, coming off the page, coming off of decorations, and being there but being dead. There's also that, there's a thing of in this book that which does have kind of aspects of magic realism, is makes the point of like her mother loves like treating the stuffed animals as like living things, like putting them upright and stuff like that, and loves stories where teddy bears come to life and things like that, which are perfectly delightful in stories. But Francie makes the point of exactly just how horrifying something inanimate coming to life would be in the real world, how that would be so disturbing, that would be so eerie, that would be something that would freak you out. That wouldn't be, oh, an enchanting children's story. And that is indeed how Aimee Bender uses these so-called kind of little flights of fancy. Is like, they're not flights of fancy, they are disturbing things. And I mean, in a novel, in the context of having a mother with mental illness, you yourself are an eccentric character, and you've seen these things which can't be explained. They are worrisome in the sense of, like, is this signs of my mental illness? Is this my brain trying to work things out? There's a disturbing kind of really disturbing thing to it, which I think Aimee Bender uses well. This is not la 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 fantasy. It's like, no, this is, wow, psychologically how hard this would be on someone, how this would, something like 20 years later, I'm still trying to come to grips with this kind of an idea. I'm really impressed with Butterfly Lampshade about exactly how small it is. It's a book that focuses on Francie and her relationship with her mother, and on this particular little time period, and her going into this little memory tent and trying to kind of to remember and to recall and to try and figure things out for herself, to kind of to process things of this rupture, and there's something about, it's like, oh, like, wow, this is so small. Is this too like, twee? The danger of tweeness kind of, I think, rears its head in a book like this. I think for the most part it avoids that. It's a very delicate thing. You could go to a certain point where you just kind of roll your eyes and, like, okay, this is someone just being quirky, an author making a character just quirky for the sake of being quirky. For my taste, I think Aimee Bender kind of navigates what's actually kind of a dangerous shoal there, and for the most part, makes me care about Francie. Francie is an aloof character, and I think a part of it is Francie has to be aloof, or else this will go into the saccharine so easily. It's also aloof in the sense of it can sometimes make you feel a little bit detached from the story. There's a lot of statico dialogue in here of, like, yes, no, was there this? No. Was there that? No. And it'll kind of go on, which I think after a little bit I found as artificial as people talking in great long paragraphs. It was definitely kind of a style choice there. Maybe also just sort of a thing of maybe how kind of closed off and tense some of the characters were. Though I think even characters who aren't tense do the same sort of stylistic thing. It's a definite style of dialogue that Bender has got there. I re-listened to the end of this book because it slightly got away from me, and I wonder if this is sort of a function of Bender being a short story author, where you're so used to kind of packing things in and hinting and alluding to stuff that if you're not a really careful reader, careful listener, it might kind of it might escape you. I felt it necessary to go back and listen to that again, and actually re-listening to it the second time, I had a lot more kind of satisfaction with the ending. I got like, oh, okay, I can see what you did here, and it's satisfied. But yeah, if you're well, not if you're not as careful a reader as listener as I am, but if you had less patience for this book, you might not want to go back and give it that extra run through, and it might just be like and whatever. It's kind of a meandering story that's focusing so much on this, and I didn't care about these characters. I did care about these characters. It's definitely a book where you kind of focus in on the language, because with that end, there's at one point a very kind of like background character says, "You're clear," and it was like, okay, that clanged. That was like, you're pushing things too hard. Just those two, "You're clear," was just like, that was, to me, was a clanger moment. That shows you, I think, how delicate of a story this is, delicately told, the attention to language that's there, that I would oh, that's terrible. It's like but so yeah, if you're into that kind of thing of like wanting to focus, like what does just every little hint and nuance there, it was a rewarding book that way. So yeah, that is my rambly, not delicate review of The Butterfly Lampshade. More videos later.